everyone, welcome to my channel. It's me, Mish, the Dorky Reader, and today's video is going to be the mid-year Freakout book tag video. It's my very first time making one of these. I always watch them on YouTube, and this year I actually get to do one myself. Yay! So without further ado, I will get to all my little notes I put on my booklet and kind of go through the different tags and tell you my opinions. Hopefully you're there for it. I don't know. Alright, so the very first book tag is pretty, like, the most important one, I feel like. It's the best book you've read so far this year. And for me, there's actually going to be two. A lot of these I'm going to answer with two books because I am really indecisive and I can't just pick one. There's so many really good ones. So I'm going to grab them and I'll be back. So, the best book I've read so far, one of them has to be Cassandra Clare's Swordcatcher. I am totally in love and obsessed with this series. It is exactly my kind of romance. That slow burn that really just trickles. And then you get these really intense tension building scenes between the two love interests that only give you just a sliver of hope for future romance, and that is exactly what I crave when I read one of these kind of books. I also absolutely love the world building. I love the rich people being wicked and all sorts of weird political things going on in the background. And this is a great series for people who love to dive into that kind of thing and don't mind reading like a slower paced book. And I'm that person. This book was written for someone just like me. So that would be one of them. The other book, ooh, let me reach, that I'd have to include in the best book of the year for me so far is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. I am absolutely loving this adventure, this dungeon crawl with Carl and Princess Donut and many others is just absolutely the best time ever. So if you're a gamer and you love reading about stats and opening loot boxes and weird, really bizarre mobs that make the adventure that much more fun, this is the book for you. I am totally obsessed. So anyway, that would be my top two for the year. The next tag number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year. And so obviously I would have to pick the sequel for the top 2 books so far, and that would be The Rag Picker King by Cassandra Clare, another book in the Chronicles of Castle Lane. I love this sequel. It was filled with some really delicious moments between our two love interests, and it was still slow burn, and there was some weird things going on in the background, and oh, there's so much intrigue and violence. It was really great. I really loved this book. I can't really hawk it enough to you guys. If you're into that kind of thing, please check it out. Fantastic book. But again, slower pacing. The other one would of course be Dungeon Crawler Carl's. This is book 3. I've only read up to book 3, and I will say 3 is better than 2. That's why I chose book 3. I really love the subway system setup they had. It was very high energy, fast paced, kind of topsy-turvy. You got to know a side character a lot more, and they became more flushed out, and it really, I think the story needed that. There was a lot going on, but I just loved it. And I think some of the villains in this, again, were more I found them funnier in this book than I did in book 2. Does that make sense? Anyway, Dungeon Crawler Carl. The other one I wanted to mention is The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. This is the second book in the Winnowing Flame trilogy, and I really thought she did a fantastic job in book 2. The world was even more fleshed out. The characters you got to know in this book were the magical creatures that were born from this godlike tree that these people were worshiping. And anyway, they all have such delightful personalities. There was a lot going on. The villains in this story were more fleshed out in book 2, and their perspective was really wild, and I loved reading about it. So if you're looking for a more challenging read that is still really funny and light in some ways, and then super serious and dark in others. This series is a great example of that. It mixes sci-fi and fantasy so beautifully, and there's just so much going on, but it's really great. Okay, book tag number 3, this is fun for me, is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. And that's really easy for me. It is going to have to be The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I really, really want to get around to reading this book. I've been putting it off. I think the size of Joe Abercrombie books sometimes makes me want to push it off, even though I find that his writing style really, really connects with me, and I absolutely loved the first trilogy with, why can't I think of the words? It's got a name. The Blade Itself, and Before They Are Hanged and all that jazz. That series has a name and I can't think of it for the life of me, but that was like one of my favorite series I've ever read in my entire life. So I know, and what people say about this book is just great. I know I'm gonna love it. So this is top of that list for me. I really want to read The Devils. I also really wanted to read, let me pull it out here. Oh gosh, a new release that I haven't read yet. Of course, that's a new release. Is A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim. I had pre-ordered this book earlier this summer because one, I just absolutely thought the cover was stunning. I may mention that again later. And also, I really love Asian-inspired fantasies. I am a big Chinese drama, Korean drama, Asian drama of all sorts, Thai, whatever. I've watched all of them. I love the mythology and folklore of that region of the world, and I just think that sometimes you can pull fantasy from other cultures, and it just really makes it it becomes new and more exciting, because you instead of the basic stuff you grew up with, like Grimm's fairy tales. I like fairy tales from everywhere. Anyway, I absolutely love this design. I've heard good things about the book from people who've read it, so it's really high on my want to read list. Next, we have the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now, I obviously don't have copies of those, so I'll maybe put the image right here. One of them is going to be The Demon and the Light. That would be the second book to another book I already own, which is Axio's The Floating Worlds. I really love this book, and I can't wait to continue it. I believe it's just a duology. Oh my gosh, my new washing machine is freaking out. Hold on. Anyway, I was going to say about that, The Floating World by Axio. The sequel to that book is really high on my radar. I really loved book 1, and I believe that it's only a duology, so they'll finish off another series for me, which I'm really looking forward to. Another book I'm looking forward to getting is This Inevitable Ruin by, of course, Matt Dinniman. It's the 7th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I haven't obviously read that high yet. I'm only on book 3. However, I do have them collected on my shelf, and I can't wait to add book 7 to the little pile. It's just looking so cute with all of its neon pop colors. It's just right up my alley. The next prompt or tag would be 5, which is the biggest disappointment you have of the year. And I hate giving answers like this because it feels like I'm dogging on someone's work or someone's favorite book even, you never know. But for me, I really, really didn't like these 2 books. One is The Bone Season. I forgot her name. Oh God. Maybe I shouldn't even mention it, but I know a lot of people really love that book, and absolutely, I wish I did too. I thought the cover work on those books was some of the prettiest covers I've ever seen. I absolutely love the beautiful chaos of those covers, and unfortunately, the story just didn't connect with me. For me, it was something about the characters. I just felt no attachment to them, like none, and I didn't really feel the romance between the main 2 characters. It felt a little bit kind of like forced because there was not really anything I felt between them. But that was just my opinion, of course. Someone else might read the same book and get a totally different vibe. I don't blame you. It just wasn't for me. The other book that was kind of a disappointment for me was The Last Blood Carver. I got a really beautiful, was it Owl Crate or Fairy Loot? One of those beautiful, like, shipped in box editions of the book. I thought it was one of the prettiest covers I'd ever seen. It was also based on an Asian folklore fairy tale thing, and then there was all sorts of stuff going on, and it didn't connect with me. It didn't. There was too much, almost, not, I don't want to say too much plot, but there wasn't enough character development in that one either. And I'm a really character-driven girly. I didn't feel, again, any connection, and that's like a big downfall for me. Like, I have to feel something for the characters to continue reading. Otherwise, it was almost a DNF, but I pushed through. But I hope you don't hate me if you love that book. It just, again, it wasn't my thing. The next is book tag 6. What was the biggest surprise of the year for you? And that's easy for me. There's two. One, obviously, is The Floating World. I picked this up because I thought the cover was beautiful. I had read one other book by her fully, and that was like XO or something. It was like a K-pop romance, and it was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either, but I didn't hate it. And I decided I would pay the money for this new book because I had read the chapter, or the first chapter of The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I believe that's, yeah, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. And I really liked that. I didn't choose that book when I had done that. I was reading a bunch of chapters and trying to figure out what to read, and maybe now I really need to. But I was like, that is pretty good, so I'll give it a go. I bought it because I loved the imagery, and it made me really curious what the book was about, and I'm so glad I did. It was such a great story. It was so romantic. Way more romantic than her other EXO book was. Like, this just made so many heart-fluttering moments for me. I really loved the magic and the world building of this little adventure, and the characters were, the guy was so cool and strong and just swoon worthy, and then the girl was just really charming and nice, and I don't know, I liked her character as well. It was beautiful, and I liked all the things that happened inside that I don't want to spoil. So that was a really good surprise for me. I liked it a whole lot more than I thought I would. The other surprise for me was, where are you? Oh, there it is. Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. So I picked this up. I don't even know why I picked this up, but I did. The plot description in this is about these cities that are like mobile and consume or devour other cities, and it's like this weird world and all sorts of stuff's going on. But reading that plot description, I thought, I don't know. I mean, maybe, like, it sounds kind of weird. And then I was looking it up. It had a movie, and I was like, oh, cool, I could watch a movie. So I read the reviews of the movie, and it bombed. Like, it was terrible. And I thought, oh no, like, is this book going to be really bad? Because this movie got really bad reviews. The plot sounds so wonky. Like, am I going to even like this? I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. It's a little darker than I imagined. There's definitely kind of this surviving and running, and I don't know. Everything worked somehow, and it was very fast-paced, and it was a good time. So if you're looking for a book to read, I don't remember if this is YA or middle grade. I don't think it's middle grade. It's pretty dark, though I guess some middle grade books are dark, but there's definitely some character death and this stuff and some gross things, but I don't know. We'll see if I can read book 2 if the series gets darker or not. But yeah, it's very good, very good. The next prompt is your favorite new author. And so for me, I hadn't read this author before, and I really loved them. I loved their work. It was Marissa Meyer. I've been reading the Lunar Chronicles, and I'm eating it up. Like, it's so fun for me. It's reading kind of like some kind of fun sci-fi movie, like Star Wars or something. Not quite Star Wars. I know people who really love Star Wars will be like, but it gives that kind of fun, action-packed vibe where, like, you've got a cheeky male lead who says just the right snarky things, and, you know, there's cool stuff going on, and the girl is kind of cool and not just a pushover. And I liked it. I really enjoyed Cinder. I enjoyed Scarlet and Crest. And so now I'm just waiting to read book 4, which is Winter. And that should be, I think, the end of that quartet. However, there are 2 additional books that I plan on reading in this series because I'm having such a good time with it. So that'll be fun. Another new author for me that I found myself enjoying more than I thought I would be Emily Henry. I read my very first Emily Henry book this year, and I really loved it. I was surprised to love it too, because rom-com typically isn't my favorite genre, but I just really ate this book up. It had a really mature feel to it, but it was also still had all that element of fluttery romance that you could ever wish for. And of course, because this is my first year reading Matt Dinniman, I'm gonna have to say Matt Dinniman is another favorite new author for me. So that's 3. Boy, I really am indecisive. But if I had to break it down, he'd probably win because I really, really loved this book series. Okay, the next prompt number 8 is your newest fictional crush. So for me, I'm going to have to say the number 1 fictional crush I have is going to be Prince Connor in the Chronicles of Castlane. I am obsessed. He is so handsome, and the way they write his romance scenes or his tension scenes, like everything he says, it's like something straight out of a fantasy for me. Like, yes, yes, yes. That's all I can say. So Prince Connor is definitely my number 1 heartthrob. I will also say I have a little bit of a crush on Carl from Dungeon Crawler Carl. I think he is the kind of guy that's really dependable and relatable, and like he'd make a realistic boyfriend. Like, that's the kind of guy you want around. If the world's gonna end, do you want to be with someone? I mean, obviously, do you want to be with someone with like Prince Connor, because Prince Connor is so awesome, but you also might want to have someone like Carl around because he's pretty darn reliable. And who else was there? I wrote this down, I think. No, I just wrote... Oh, I did write it down. Where is it at? My books are all stacked everywhere. I would have to say, gosh, is it Sunho? Sunho from The Floating World is also pretty dreamy. I would have to say he's another fictional crush I've got this year. Okay, so prompt number 9 is favorite new character, and I've got a few of those. My favorite characters in these books, obviously I'll have to include Prince Connor because he is perfect, but also I wanted to mention Anna from The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I do believe Anna is one of my favorite female characters ever written. She is just so great. She is quirky, she is weird, she is eccentric, she talks like a sailor, she's not young, she's old, and she's really cool. So having this cool older woman character is really great to read in fiction. It's very refreshing for me. I feel like not a lot of authors take the time to make their female characters this eccentric and this just absolutely crazy. So she's a riot, and she plays the part in this book of kind of like a Sherlock Holmes-esque figure, like this super genius who can really solve crimes in really weird ways. And her assistant is kind of the star of this book. He is like Watson. You kind of see this story play out in his perspective, and he is just very stoic and very calm and very like put together, and he has to be because Anna is just out there. So Anna is one of my favorite characters. Another is going to have to be Princess Donut. So if you don't know about Dungeon Crawler Carl, this is book 3, which I just grabbed. Princess Donut is a show cat It's Carl's ex-girlfriend's cat, whom she just abandoned with Carl, and so he's been looking after her this whole time. Basically, on the night everything went wrong, she had jumped out a window, and he went outside in his underwear to go get her because she's an indoor cat, and that's when everything collapsed and went crazy. So he's stuck with this cat. We took inside this dungeon, and while in there, something happened. She got this upgrade, and it made her very sentient and smart, and she's just this diva. She is really high maintenance, really goofy, but she's also very underneath it all. Even though she's got kind of a sassy exterior, she's a big sweetheart underneath. And so reading her character is always a pleasure. Everyone who reads these books loves Princess Donut. I mean, you'd be nuts not to. Another favorite character I mentioned Connor already. So obviously Prince Connor has lots of different layers to him besides being just my heartthrob. He's also, he's this prince of this grand land, this beautiful place. Is it Castle Lane? And I could be wrong what the name is because it's been a few months and my brain has really bad ADHD. But anyway, so he is this prince, and his family had hired a young orphan boy since he was a young boy to kind of live as his sword catcher. Someone who looks enough like him, especially with the help of this kind of magical amulet, to kind of pull off being him in certain public areas when, you know, there's a threat, so that he doesn't get assassinated. It would be his sword catcher instead. But he grows up with the sword catcher, and he really loves him. It's one of his dearest friends, and he's got this group of really rich kind of snobby, entitled guys. But even though he is a prince and he does have some of those qualities, there's a little bit more depth to him. He's not a horrible guy. He's actually a great guy. He is the main star in some ways, but you don't really see the book in his perspective, which I'm wondering if they'll do that in book 3. I'm not sure. But he's layered really nicely, and I think everyone needs to be treating him better. They all need to treat him better. So anyway, next prompt is called A Book That Made You Cry. And I don't really cry often in books. It's just not something I do. But I have cried this year. I cried while reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book was beautiful, and it's kind of like this love letter to life in my perspective. Like, she's living all these hundreds of years. What makes life worth living when there's so much pain and agony? And she kind of comes to understand that even with all of that, there's still something, you know, worth looking forward to. Life is beautiful, you know, that kind of thing. And there's a character in this book who is suffering depression, and he's kind of at some point questioning whether he should be alive or not. And I think the revelation of that, when he got to the point of kind of, you know, understanding that life is worth living, I don't know, that moment kind of made me tear up quite a bit. I'm someone who has suffered depression most of my life. It's just, I think I'm wired different. I don't have like some tragic backstory to go hand in hand with that. It's just the way that my body's wired. I often get into a funk and I get really down, and I understand exactly where he's coming from. So like, I don't know, the book just really touched me. It was beautiful. So really good, read it. Okay, prompt number 11. There's only 13, so we're almost there. A book that made you happy. Well, obviously I'm going to say Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I feel like a broken record always bringing that up because it is so fun. But another book that made me happy was Funny Story. I don't know, there's something about it had such a delightful, perfect ending for me. Just, like a happily ever after, but didn't feel like a cheesy one. Like, it felt like both characters grew and changed and had great moments for themselves, and then she got this great happily ever after in her way, and it was beautiful. I loved it. So it was a very good book, and it made me happy. I was happy to read it. Most beautiful book you've gotten this year. Ooh, okay. Well, I would have to say these two are some of the prettiest. So obviously I think this book is stunning. The blue and the gold. I mean, that is so pretty. So this is one of them. I'm a sucker for gold edging, so we have that. And then there's another one with gold edging I wanted to show, which is my copy of The Diary of a Young Girl. I got it from Barnes & Noble, and it's made with this leather kind of material and the beautiful gold on the edging here. And I don't know, it just feels very like solid, and that side is so pretty, and it just has kind of this classy look to it, I think. And the other one, I think the most pretty, like sprayed edge whatever book I have is this one. It's called Deathless, and I haven't read it yet. I'm a sucker for like that look of like how Russian buildings have these beautiful bulbous pillars that go up. I just think they're so pretty, and they're all over the sprayed edge of this book. Just so pretty. And there are some of my favorite colors: gold, red, black, and white, all just in one image. I just think it's stunning. So those would be the prettiest books I think I got this year. Prompt number 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I'm trying to continue with all my series. I think that's something I really wanted to prioritize. I also obviously really want to read The Devils. I have to read Joe Abercrombie. And I want to move forward in his last world, so I need to read Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie as well. This is a must read for me. I'm also, let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. Trying to think if there's another one. Ooh, bring my cart over. Ah, yes. This is a book that everyone has been pushing me to read. So I'm going to put it out there right now that I really need to read by the end of the year, Project Hail Mary. I feel like this book is something that my friends and people on the internet say I'm going to love, and I should trust them. Also, I'm just sick of people asking me if I read it yet, because I haven't. So it needs to be on a TBR soon. So maybe I can put it, next time I get a prompt that fits and I have choice between this and something else, I should pick it, because then I'll guarantee I get it at least on a TBR. That would be good for me. Okay, anyway, that was my very first mid-year Freakout book tag, and I'm really excited to put it out there. I hope people like it, and I hope that I get at least more than 10 views. We'll see. Okay, see you later. Bye. Oops.